Hello everyone, and welcome to the You Don't Look Like an Engineer podcast. Today we have Angela Hucker, who has over 20 years of experience working in numerous areas of the construction industry.
Yeah, her 20 years span working in teams predominantly male, and she will tell us all about her experiences working in these fields. But she's honestly also been a badass serving on multi-billion-dollar projects all across Australia and has worked for several years in the FIFO world as well.
And for those that don't know what FIFO means, it's fly in, fly out. So she is a buddy, and she has been pretty much everywhere. In the sense that she's been in the corporate world and also in construction in the most interesting conditions.
Yeah.
Of course, Angela, with all this knowledge and experience, wanted to help and empower other females in the construction sector. And that's why she is also the founder of EPIC, which is empowering people in construction. The name says it all, and we can't wait for you to hear more about this in the episode.
So without further ado, Angela, thank you so much for making time and coming on our podcast. If you could please introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit about what motivates you every day.
I come from the construction industry. I've had 20 years working in the industry myself, and I've been really fortunate to have part of that time also working as a fly-in, fly-out worker, working on major projects around Australia as well. So I've been really blessed to work across a number of different construction sectors, including, oil and gas, renewables, power, civil, quite a range of stuff, which has been really great. So what keeps me inspired every day is what I'm currently working on at the moment, which is my company, which I've recently set up, and that's actually to help support women who work in the industry regardless of what their role is, because there's a lot of women who actually work behind the scenes, aren't necessarily frontline people, essentially like tradespeople, like the engineers and the commercial people and safety and environment. And they're in the industry and they're being exposed to the same sort of issues. So what keeps me inspired every day is to be able to do the best that I can to be able to create information and opportunities to support them so they can be retained long term in the industry.
That's beautiful. And it's really important because I feel like, as we know, the corporate world is very different from the construction world, but that doesn't mean that we don't face similar challenges and similar stereotypes to challenge. I'm curious to know whether how you started in the construction industry. Was this like a specific influence, or was it just like personal choice that brought you here?
To be honest, I actually fell into it, which I think some people have a tendency to fall into some careers. Some careers you don't actually plan for, they just kind of happen. So what actually happened, I was sailing up the Queensland coast. I was living on a boat at the time and was sailing up the coast with my partner, and we'd planned this awesome trip to head to far north Queensland. We'd sailed up from the Gold Coast. We got into Hervey Bay, and we pulled up there at a place that was doing pre-sales for a Peppers resort. So they were pre-selling all the units, and they had to get a number of units sold as part of the pre-sales to then be able to get their financing for the construction to start. So I was literally just working in the pre-sales office, providing support to the sales team. And then I got asked to move over when the construction actually started. And it basically just went on a trajectory from there, really. So it was a good opportunity to work on, like a major commercial project as my very first project. There was 132 units in the Peppers Resort. There was a hotel and restaurant. There was a conference centre. There was a day spa. There was retail outlets. So there was a whole mix of different things. And I basically started working and managing all the subcontractors and putting together, specifications and tender packages, and then managing them once they were awarded the contracts as well. So, and that's basically what my career has ended up being, is actually predominantly managing contractors. So, how that kind of set me on the path was really quite interesting. So, and it was a great opportunity.
What was your background to be able to get you in a position, in a role like that?
Prior to that, I had actually worked in male-dominated industries. My very first job, so to speak, was actually managing a chain of locksmith stores around Brisbane.
Oh, yeah.
So I had about 5 different stores that I was managing. And, I was one of only 2. There was me and one other female in Queensland who was actually trained in complex locksmithing systems. And back then, like we're talking, early mid-90s, which is showing my age. But, back then you didn't actually realise that that gender bias that was normal in the industry. Like I would have people coming in and they'd be like, "Can I speak to the locksmith?" And I'm like, "Can I help you?" "Yeah, no, I want to speak to the locksmith." And I'm like, "What can I help you with?"
Yeah.
"Well, we need a key cut." And I'm like, "Okay, well, show me the key and I'll get it cut for you. Like, no problems." And I didn't realise all those years ago that gender bias that actually went on. So my background was actually, I started managing, the chain of locksmithing stores. I then went into vehicle leasing for government departments, and then I moved over into the construction, working. And as I said, the Peppers being the first project I worked on, and it just went from there. But yeah, it's now looking back in hindsight and reflecting, and it's like, wow, just dealing with all this stuff that I've actually dealt with over the years. So
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting. Like all the biases that you probably didn't pick up and you were like, why are people being so rude? And then just clicking eventually. It's like, oh, I know exactly what
And
you
I
mean.
just back then, I was only young. I was like late teens, early 20s. And, I just didn't understand, why do you think I can't cut a key? And you
Yeah.
don't realise that gender bias, that comes with it. So it was really quite interesting. And now I've gone, okay, this is why I'm fixing the problem. So
Absolutely. Yeah. We want people to just like understand that there's nothing wrong with them. They can cut the key. It's just to do with people and like the influences that we have in conditioning, which is really big. Did you have any expectations when you started in the construction industry, or like was it all new?
Yeah, look, it was all new because obviously I was learning, and but I had that very first project I spoke about. I had 2 really awesome mentors. So the project manager, he'd been in construction a long time, and he just basically took me under his wing, and he showed me, how to read plans, how to interpret stuff, how to do takeoffs, how to put together tender packages, how to do all the bits and pieces. And then I had a contracts manager as well, who was really great to work with and provided a lot of mentoring and guidance and support and everything as well. And I've actually been really blessed throughout my career. Again, as I look in hindsight, the men who have actually been awesome mentors for me and taught me so much, because I wouldn't be where I am now without them. And so it wasn't an expectation. I've always had the attitude, like I'm always eager to learn and to try and tap into other people's knowledge as much as I can, because I'm a firm believer, like we've all got something to share and we've all got something special about us, and some knowledge that someone else doesn't have. And I'm very much always eager to learn off someone else, because it's just another perspective and another thing that, you can add to your tool belt, basically. So yeah, I've just been really fortunate in myself that I've always had that open mindset. And as a result, I've had really great male allies who have been great mentors for me and helped encourage me and support me along the way as well and teach me.
That's a fantastic mindset. And honestly, we always keep talking about allies, and we've noticed like a trend as well when we talk to people that they're able to get into this industry and maintain in this industry because allies, male allies that have just been mentors or father figures that have pushed women into maths and science and not, imposed gender roles on them, which is so amazing. But for like a listener who's learning about this and learning, there's mentors and allies out there, how would you advise them to get the most out of that mentorship?
My advice would be, make sure you actually have an open mindset yourself, because if you're open to receiving information, you don't know what you can learn. And as I mentioned, like everyone's got something valuable that they can offer. And if you're open to just sitting there and listening and learning, then you can actually pick something up that can help change the course of your life as well. And it might just be someone say one thing or teach you one thing that can make the difference. But if you're not receptive to receiving that information, that's a missed opportunity.
It's not even about being closed-minded. I feel like sometimes when you put people in a industry where they're a minority and they feel there's so much expectation, and that self-expectation, to be honest, that they put on their shoulders, and they feel like I should know this already, like everyone else is at pace, like maybe I should like somehow magically just know this already in my head. And so that stops people from asking and being very open, like, you know, I don't know this, can you teach me? Is that just something that comes with practice, or is it something someone should build on their confidence, or what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, there's a few elements with that because, you know, we all have to start somewhere, and you can't walk in, you know, straight out of uni or fresh to the industry and think that you're going to have 20 years knowledge, because you don't, you know, and there is that the gap there purely based on experience. And as women, you know, like I know we're terrible for that because we have high expectations naturally for ourselves as well. You know, I'm guilty of that. But it's actually just, you know, for me, it's actually owning it and just going, hey, I don't know everything. You know, actually being authentic and being real and being honest with yourself. I don't know everything. I'm actually here to learn. You know, what can I pick up? What can I do? How can I improve? And just be always looking for ways as to how you can take on board information and learn and improve and grow. So it's not about that closed mindset necessarily. To me, it comes down to your attitude as well and how authentic you are, and being able to have that honesty with yourself and others, because you will actually get a lot more respect, I have found from my experience, if you put your hand up and say, hey, look, I don't know this, I don't know how to do it, can you show me? Rather than someone who fumbles around thinking, oh, you know, I've got to do this because this is what the expectation is and I've got to be like them and stuff like that. And all it does is it actually puts unnecessary pressure on yourself. Whereas if you put your hand up and own it and go, hey, look, I don't know this, can you show me? People will actually give you a lot more respect because they're like, they actually do want to help. They want to impart their knowledge, but they won't do it unless they're asked for it as well. So, so when you're coming across with this thing that, you know, I've got to be like this, I've got to have this, you know, expectation that I've got to know everything, and you actually don't, you're only setting yourself up to fail, really. So it really is about owning it and just don't have the expectation on yourself. Like life is here to help teach us everything, and it's just one big playground to help learn. So,
oh my gosh, I love that.
That is so valuable. Oh, at any stage in your life, I think that advice is so powerful.
It's like a compass that will just help you point north all the time.
Yes, it's good.
But you mentioned, like, if you're open and receptive to learning, sometimes you can learn something you never expected and can change the trajectory of your life. Did you have like a big catalytic experience or something like that?
Oh, look, to pinpoint one would be really hard because I think I've had so many. And it's just because I've worked across so many industries and I've had so many great, as I mentioned before, so many great mentors and everything. It's like, just there's so many things, honestly, that I've learned. I honestly could not pick one. Okay, I'll give you one thing, which is something that was actually really valuable to me in dealing with people and communication and stuff like that. And this was actually when I was working away, doing the fly in, fly out work. And Laura knows, like, I had a pretty horrendous roster and, long rosters and long days and things like that. But I was living in an environment where I was living with the men as well. So in camp environments with, you know, a couple of thousand men. And you are significantly the minority because there was probably about 100 women in these camps. Wow. So not many.
10 to 1, yeah.
Very intense environments. But because our roster was 4 weeks of being away from our homes and everything, and we were all doing it, the one thing that I learned is basically just be kind to others, because you never know what someone else is dealing with. And especially in those environments, because everyone's away from their normal environment, they're away from their families, they're away from their loved ones, their home, their network. And, you know, there's a lot of people who deal with a lot of stuff. Life goes on. But it's just always making sure you're coming from a place of being kind to others, because construction, you know, the stats are, it's the number 1 industry for mental health issues. You know, the report recently done on the project, every second day someone's committing suicide in the industry. Like, it's really quite alarming. And if people were just kinder and more understanding to others, and not coming from a place of aggression, you know, nastiness, things like that. Because you never know, there could be one thing that could either make someone's day or it could break it for them.
Yeah.
And that was one big lesson I learnt, was just, you know, always be kind to everyone.
Yeah, that is significantly important. I think we don't know what people are going through, and even though they might look like they have it all together, you know, sometimes we don't, and it's okay. It'll be fine, but yeah, if you can contribute to someone else's day in a positive manner, I think that's powerful as well. I'm glad that you mentioned your experience in fly in, fly out. I wanted to ask you, how did you stumble across that, from that type of projects that you were dealing with to fly in, fly out, and how was your experience as a female? You have shared a little bit, but if we can go into...
So how did I get into it? Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, that's the first one.
That's another thing I just kind of, you know, fell into, really, because that's what happens. That's my life. I just fall into things. No, I was actually working for a national corporate company, and a lot of their work is predominantly in the construction industry, and they do a lot of major projects around Australia. So I had started with them, and I was working, you know, office-based initially, and I expressed an interest that I wanted to do the fly in, fly out work, because I love travelling, and I just love going to places that you wouldn't go on holiday on, really. So, you know, what a perfect mix to be able to have that when you do FIFO work. Look, so as a female, it was interesting is the word I will use. It was quite an eye-opener to what actually goes on. When you're in an office, you're a bit, how can I put it?
In bubble wrap?
You know, you're a bit sheltered. You're a bit sheltered from what actually goes on site. I had to find the right word then. You're a bit sheltered. When you actually get on site, it's a whole different game, because it's actually quite intense. There's a lot of energy. You know, they're very long days. I was starting on one of my projects was at 5 o'clock in the morning and wasn't finishing anywhere until 6 or 7 at night, purely because of the hours. And when you're actually in the phase of building the stuff and you're there, there's so many things that you don't realise what goes on a construction site that you have no awareness about when you're in an office. And it's just the dynamics of what happens. Like, it could be, you know, doing breathalyzers and someone blows over in the morning, or someone's had a car accident and you've got to deal with that, or someone's there and they're, you know, they've had a death in the family and they've got to get home suddenly. So all these kind of different bits and pieces that you've got to manage when you're on site. As a female, when I said it was quite interesting, you know, you really, really are the minority. One of the projects I was on, we had about 250 on site, and I was the only female. 250 for our company. I was the only female. And I had to go out to give, you know, announcements and stuff at pre-start. And it was bloody nerve-wracking. Like, my hands were shaking because I'm going to have to talk to all of these men about, certain things, and, all the eyes are on you. And then as the female, those expectations and the pressure that you put on yourself, that you don't want to stuff it up and you don't want to look like a fool. So you have to actually contain yourself to not do that. So yeah, it's quite intense and quite interesting. But the result is that, I did use that motto that I touched on before, was just be kind to everyone, because you don't know what they're dealing with. Because people didn't know what I was dealing with as well. And I did have a lot of personal issues at the time whilst I was there. I did struggle with my own mental health as well, because you're isolated, you're a minority, it's quite a difficult environment to be in. But as a result of that, I actually ended up with a whole army of men who basically have become like adopted brothers and uncles and dads and mentors and allies and all this sort of stuff. And, here it is years and years later, and, I know their wives and their kids and their families, and, I can stay at their houses when I go interstate and stuff, with their families, obviously. And they are literally like this silent army of brothers that rallied around me and supported me as well as the female. So, there was challenging moments, but there was also some really beautiful moments as well with the people that I was able to connect with. So
that's so beautiful. And I guess slightly not contradictory, but it's uplifting, because I remember my first experience going out on site was in the Pilbara in Western Australia. And again, my boss and mentor who had taken us was absolutely amazing. I'd say he was just so open-minded and like a great mentor, like some of the people you've mentioned. But one thing he had done was he had taken us to this top of this hill out on site, and it had like all these stones on the sides, and he was like, do you know what this is and what these stones represent? And it was all the people who had committed suicide.
Oh no.
Yeah, from being out. And it just painted a very vivid picture of how bad the mental health crisis is over there. And I always thought it was a very isolating experience.
Yeah.
But it is nice to hear that, you can form such great bonds out of being so far away from anything that is comfortable and familiar.
And it's just, for me, it's supporting each other, because that's important, because as I touched on, like, everyone's dealing with something in whatever context.
So true.
We all have a personal life. We've all got stuff going on. And sometimes work can be the place where it's a bit of a, like a safe space, or a place that kind of saves you as well from whatever's happening in your personal life.
Yeah.
So it's just making sure that, people are doing everything they can to support each other, because, there's just, mental health is just a major thing. And, when you add the elements into it with a very intense industry like construction, and then being away, and then new environment and new people and all of that stuff, there's a lot to deal with. So, it's just rallying around each other and helping lift each other up and support each other.
It is quite an intense experience, like you're saying. Like, you have to face a lot of stuff you'd never have imagined. Would you recommend most new starters in this industry to go through and just have that experience under their belt?
As in the fly in, fly out scene?
Yes. Or construction, or just on site, FIFO, any of that.
Look, I honestly think anyone who is office-based really needs to have the opportunity of actually working on a construction site, not necessarily fly in, fly out. And I mean everyone, because that actually gives a totally different context as to the dynamics and the intensity of what happens on a construction site. And it's really invaluable for people then to, in those decision-making positions, to make better informed decisions when they've got real practical experience what happens on an actual site as well, rather than sitting in sitting in an ivory tower with no actual real experience and trying to make decisions for those who are dealing with it. Get the experience is valuable. The fly in, fly out scene, it's not for everyone. Like, I will be honest, it's not for everyone because of the intensity of it. And, there is a lot of your own personal mental health stuff that you've got to deal with when you're there. because of the remoteness, the isolation, add in the element of being a female, being the minority. And it does take, it's very character building. I'm not going to not deny that, but you have to have a character that has an element of strength to it as well.
Yeah.
I've had guys, honestly, who've rocked up and they've got into camp ready to start work the next day. They've got into camp. They've been there an hour as a guy and have turned around and said, I can't do it. I'm going home. And they haven't even rocked up to work the next day. They've literally flown in one day, got their room, gone to their room and have just gone, can't do it, and packed up and turned around and gone home.
Without giving it a shot?
Without even turning up to the job.
What?
Like just when they've got into camp. So that's the thing, is that even men struggle with this as well.
Yeah. Oh, the energy might be like a little bit different as well. Like,
yeah, I guess.
So that's where I say that element of, having
toughness,
a mental resilience about you that, there is, and it's not saying, you've got to be macho and everything like that, but there is definitely a mental strength that's needed to be able to manage.
At the start, when you were introducing yourself, you mentioned something about that you're the director of two consulting, well, first Epic and also CAP Consulting.
Yeah.
What does it stand for?
So CAP is contracts and procurement.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So it is an acronym. Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Did you ever envision that you were going to be a director? And how did that happen?
No.
Did you also fall into it?
I fall into everything. I think no, honestly, I've actually always had a bit of a, whether you call it an entrepreneurial spirit or whatever you like, throughout my whole life, I've actually always had this thing where it's like, I really don't like working for other people, but I've got to, I was a single parent and everything, so I needed the job security as well. So, hence why I did, JOBs rather than doing something for myself to make sure I had that security to support me and my son. But, I've just always had this thing, and as I've got older and, probably my tolerance levels may have gone down a little bit with job environments, and I've just gone, I would just rather do my own thing and be in charge of my own life and do that. And so that's where I've just stepped out and gone, I will go. So the contracts and procurement, CAP Consulting, is basically providing consulting services, specialising in contracts management and probity, which is my skill set. So I have a number of clients up and down the East Coast who I work for, and then I'm a probity advisor for the government as well, working on government tenders. And then Epic, so CEO of Epic, and that's the company that I've established this year, and that's specialising on supporting women who work in the construction industry, is the main focus. And then the focus is also on about transforming the culture in the industry as well to make it more welcoming for women so women can actually be retained. But making sure the women are supported who are there or entering the industry, because that's absolutely essential, but then actually helping with that mindset shift of the people who are there. So, don't be dicks, like be more welcoming, be more engaging, and actually women can do this. Knock off that gender bias that's going on, and let's, make it better and get more male allies on board to help do that as well.
How does that actually work? So I guess if you were to give an example of what sort of work it is that you do at Epic, is it like webinars and like learning,
coaching,
or mentorships, or how do you envision changing the culture?
So there's a couple of things. So I'm actually partnering with a company at the moment, and we're looking at developing adaptive learning modules which are tackling basically the psychosocial hazards. So there's 5 that I'm focusing on, which is sexual harassment, bullying, intimidation, inequity, and harassment. So educating on those and basically about what it is, what it looks like, and what to do, because I'm a firm believer that, you know, a lot of people and these type of behaviours, you know, as I said, I was dealing with it back in the mid-90s, but these type of behaviours, even with the subconscious bias as well, have never actually really been called out. And so people don't know what they don't know. So unless they've been called out on it previously and educated on it, they actually think it's normal and acceptable. So my focus is on calling it out and actually educating them that this isn't acceptable. And just because you haven't been called out on it before doesn't mean it's okay, because it's actually not, and it's prohibited and it's against the law. But they have to be educated. So to educate them, it's developing learning modules to help walk them through what it is and what it looks like. And then it will do like a skills gap analysis to identify, okay, well, there's some actual big gaps here, so we need to invest in some training to help elevate this. And then the next part of that is, apart from tackling those psychosocial hazards, is actually educating on the soft skills. So confidence, respect, communication, teamwork, mindset, resilience, authenticity, like all the things that people aren't actually taught in school that you need to be able, and they're fundamental principles that you need, in the construction industry, but you need for life as well, so that you can actually succeed. You know, they're very important skills. So that's one of the ways that I'm looking at. And then that will, apart from that partnership, you know, that will include my own stuff that I create as well, with some short courses and things like that as well. And then going in person and delivering training as well. The part with the supporting the women, so that will be like a membership basis where they come in and they'll actually, you know, they'll get coaching and mentoring. So I've got a team of internationally certified coaches as well. I'm also one myself, to be able to provide certified coaching techniques that actually are targeted and quite specific to help people release any beliefs and things they have about themselves and get them on track with, you know, where they are better aligned so they can actually succeed and get the goals that they want to achieve. And then provide that, you know, apart from the coaching, but, you know, have like accountability groups, have access to resources, have that network, you know, just create that community to help wrap that support around each other so we can all just help lift each other up as well. To me, that's really important. And then have, you know, same as what you ladies are doing, have some podcasts of, you know, some awesome female leaders to show females, because there's a, you know, underrepresentation of female leaders as well. But, you know, some awesome female leaders, not just from construction, but from a lot of industries, so they can talk about, you know, things that they've dealt with and challenges they've overcome and what they've done and where they've got to, because you can learn from other people who've walked the path before, and you can learn some things as what you can do, you know, that might help change the path that you're walking, because you've gone, oh, they've done that, and that's kind of something that I could try and then see where that takes me. So that's the plan for next year, is to have a podcast series with that as well. And it's just basically providing resources to people that, you know, everyone learns in different ways, and making sure there's all the different styles of resources available so people can learn whatever their way is, essentially.
Very complete, very holistic. I like that. I have so many questions about so many things, but I think the one that is like there, because we were talking about confidence and how to build confidence, and I think that's like one of the big ones in the industry, the confidence gap that we have. How would you explain that gap to someone that has zero idea about biases and the gap itself?
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, confidence is made up of a lot of things, and confidence is not bad attitude, and it's not being cocky, and it's not being, there's a level of assertive, but there's a point of being assertive where then you can be aggressive assertive, and it's not being that. So confidence is actually knowing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing what your worth is, and then being able to communicate effectively as well. But it's also about making sure that as a person that you're growing, because as you're growing and you're learning, you're actually getting more confident as well. So when you're able to invest in yourself and invest in your learning, and you can achieve more things and you can do more things, and you feel smarter because you know more, it actually helps increase your confidence. And, like the listening, active listening and empathy is really important as well. When you actually care about someone or care about something, then, you have this element about you that makes you feel confident that, hey, I want to protect that, or I want to look after that, or I want to, make sure that isn't harmed, essentially. So confidence is something, it's the number one skill that women lack. I've not had confidence for a lot of my life, and it's taken a lot of really major situations in my life for me to be able to have that confidence and to be able to find my voice and speak up and stuff. I was very much a person of, not wanting to rock the boat and, be kept small and, don't upset people and all of those things that women deal with. Whereas now it's like, no way, like I'm actually going to speak up and, say how it is. And it's not being done, as I said, not being done in an aggressive way. It's obviously being respectful as well, but it's actually knowing who you are and what your worth is and what you bring to the table, and then how you can communicate that effectively.
Absolutely. I like that communication aspect of it, because it's everything about like the delivery, and it's a very thin line that you don't want to cross, as you said, like you don't want to come across as cocky, because no one likes that. And you shouldn't, because then you're like applying an authority sort of thing, like you're making it hierarchical, which is really true.
Growing up, and I'm sure like so many women can relate, it's like this programming to minimize yourself in every space you're in, and I still do that in so many scenarios, and then I leave and I'm like, oh my god, I could have said all this, that might have helped. And it's unfortunate, you can't do anything in hindsight.
And look, I still have that to this day, honestly. I don't think that ever goes, just as a word of advice, because there's always conversations I play back in my head and going, oh man, I could have said that, and I could have said that. I missed that. But it's just like, and then you've just got to let it go, like, because you can't change it, it's done. So
yeah. And I really liked your learning modules that you're talking about for developing people's understanding to what these discriminatory or sexual harassment things look like. We were talking to someone else who I think is working on developing a VR sort of thing where like leaders can walk through an experience and actually feel what it looks like, what it feels like. And I think that's I haven't heard anything like that before, because I feel like most people only really empathize with something when it
has happened to them.
Yeah, and beyond that, it's very difficult for them to understand. So I think that's something that would be so sick to implement, as well.
So we'll see how it looks. I mean, it's just initial discussions and, working on the partnership agreement, and the next few weeks we'll be starting to map out, what the modules will look like and, how we create them and things like that. So it's early phases, but the potential for this, because it can be used, mandatory for inductions, especially with the psychosocial hazards, and now, everyone's got a responsibility to minimise those psychosocial hazards. So there has to be a big education piece on that that companies have a responsibility to do. So that's the intent, is that this can create that gap for companies so that everyone's not out doing their own thing. There's one that's ready-made that they can use, and they can use it for inductions, they can use it for toolboxes, and it will just show where people are at and just help while they're going through and learning. It will actually help educate, so it will lift them as well to go, oh, okay, I wasn't aware of that. That's something I need to not do now. So, yeah.
Yeah. It ties into the positive duty thing that we now have, right? If you go through, for example, harassment at the workplace, and then you speak up and they don't do anything about it, then companies now can actually get in like trouble for it.
What are, I guess, any top 3 challenges you face as a director of such forward-thinking and progressive companies?
Challenges. Not having enough hours in the day is a big challenge.
That's very true.
So, and actually having to go to sleep is a big challenge because I've just got so much I want to do. And if I could just survive by breathing and not sleeping, I'd be happy.
Oh, gosh.
But that's not possible.
And there's such a guilt associated when you're trying to build all these things and you're trying to rest. You're like, but I could be doing so much, and that doesn't help you rest, which is frustrating. Anyway.
Yeah, the mind is like literally 1,000 miles an hour, and it just wakes me up every day, anywhere from 3 o'clock.
I can relate.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
Well, I mean, I don't get woken up. I can relate with the miles an hour. I don't get woken up.
It's a smaller scale. Yeah.
Yes, it's a smaller scale. Yeah.
Yeah. Time's a big thing, like enough time to do everything, because I've got so many initiatives on the go at the moment. So there's so many balls in the air, and keeping them all juggling and, slowly, get a few things off my list and then a few others come on and keep them juggling and stuff as well. But, to me, I love it because I actually look at this. This is probably going to sound really corny, but this is actually in my head. This is like the love of my life and like my child, because it's like this is an extension of me, and it's something that honestly, it's all I think about all the time is what else can I do? What other initiative can I look at? What other way can I help make this better? What some things of information I can, start developing to get out there. So it is honestly, I don't think I've ever had a love like this before. If that's
yes. So cute. I love that.
I love hearing that because I was talking to my friend last night at dinner, and I was saying to her, I feel like, and I'm young, I know that, but I remind myself of that. But you sometimes spend time or invest energy and time in relationships, romantic ones. And I feel like they don't work for some reason, but then you invest time in friendships and in your work life, in your career development. And those are the aspects that in my personal experience have always been reciprocal to me. The more energy I put into it, the more you can create. And it's quite empowering to see that as well. Yeah. So I do think it would be good to have the same perspective. Of this is the love of my life sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I just look at it that it's something I am so deeply passionate about, because I truly do care about people, and it actually pains me terribly. It hurts my heart immensely when I see people suffering or struggle. And so I've gone and I've walked that path. I've had my own struggles and, my own suffering to deal with. And I know how painful that is. And this is why, for me, it's now well, if I can use my knowledge and my experience from what I've dealt with to help others so they don't have to go through it, and then that's something that actually really lifts me up because, if I can just help affect someone's life and then what the ripple effect of that is and how that could help someone and just, not have people, sorry to say it, but not have people in the industry committing suicide, help reduce those statistics as well. And that's something that, that's kind of my driving force, to be honest. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's, we do think that it's a small sort of impact that we have, but when you put it that way, we're preventing someone to, ending their life. And it's really powerful to have that influence on people or to inspire them and gain that inspiration from them as well as they overcome those challenges. I'm curious to know what your key attributes for empowering people are and whether you sort of develop them in childhood or over time.
So EPIC has an acronym for many things, of course, because that's how I roll. So my key attributes, which I call my values. So EPIC, so the E stands for empower, and that is always making sure that you're empowering everyone. The P is potential, and that's unlocking people's potential with passion. The I is inspire, so inspire with integrity. And C is compassion, and it's compassion and care are the core. So that's what underpins everything that we do.
That's really beautiful, and
Compassion.
I guess it aligns so heavily with your why. Why you're doing this, and it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Do you think you're compassionate to yourself?
Compassionate to myself? I am compassionate to myself. I just need to make sure I have a little bit more time for social connection, I guess you could say, because I'm so busy creating at the moment.
That is nice that you can acknowledge it, though. It's a big step.
Yeah. No, I have a coach as well. I mean, apart from me coaching, but I have a coach as well, because it is important that everyone has a coach, because coaches actually help people find missing gaps. And that was something identified in my coaching session yesterday, surprisingly, that I need more time for social connections.
Oh, that is a good takeaway, I guess. It's fine I find it hard to, at least, I don't know why, but I find it hard to find people that you could really connect in a deeper level. Like, obviously I have Sohan, which is amazing, and I'm so fortunate to have her because we have so many things in common, and the depth of our conversations are really good, and they fill my cup. And I also have some other girlfriends, but when you meet people, sometimes it's really hard to sort of are they going to be as passionate as I am?
And, as I said, because this is my greatest love, so I could talk about this all the time, but it's not everyone's greatest love, and I need to be mindful of that.
It's so true. I tend to forget that quite a lot with a few things.
And not everyone is part of the industry, so they probably don't understand it. They're like, we love that you're passionate, but stop.
But we're not in there, so we don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, absolutely. Apart from that, I guess, blind spot that you discovered, what was another one that coaching helped you sort of understand and change your career, or has improved your career?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there's been a major one, which is my own self-doubt. Because I was constantly doubting myself that I was able to do this.
Wow.
And I just think so many people will relate to that. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
And so it is literally only by working with, I've got two coaches actually, but literally by working with my coaches that they've actually helped me look at that in a different perspective and then shift those beliefs in me. And honestly, they're not even, it's just actually not even in my head anymore. But It used to be there and plague me constantly, because I would second guess myself and question and doubt and question and overanalyze. And now I'm just just boom, 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 just get in, do it, move on, next thing, go.
So it can vanish.
Yeah, totally gone.
Wow. And are these coaches, I guess, specific career development coaches, like they're trained to do this sort of thing, or people you've worked with, older mentors,
No, so I'm actually an internationally certified coach myself, so it's within that community of certified coaches. But I've recently also attended a Tony Robbins event, because Tony is awesome and one of my mentors and heroes. And part of that is with the program I've got with that is I get 12 months of coaching as well. So
very cool.
Wow, that is so cool. Yeah.
I wanted to say very epic, and then I was like, oh, the irony.
It is epic.
It is. Theme of the day.
You have provided so many good advices for individuals, and
thank you.
I'm really happy that we're having this conversation, because it's actually, it makes you reflect when you talk to people like you all. I'm so happy that we do this, because it's amazing. And it's so inspiring. Just hearing your story and everything is so good.
What would you say are the challenges about the current gender roles? And I know everyone talks about the benefits of changing this industry. Do you think there's any downfalls to the changes that might be coming?
So the challenges, I see and I predicted this was happening, and sadly it's coming into play. But the challenges that I see is that the targets that are being set with what the percentages of gender equity are for government-funded projects. So Victoria's obviously starting theirs they've had 2 years of, I guess you could say, trialling it, and it's effectively the policies coming into play in January 2024, where there's got to be 1% of women in positions, and that includes, normal positions, trades and non-trades. I think that poses a challenge because for me, that's a cart before the horse. It's actually putting in targets, but you actually haven't got the people yet. And it's creating a challenge that A, you've got to find the people, and B, you've got to find the right people to be able to fill those positions as well, and not create an environment where you're setting women up to fail. Because essentially it's going to then be a tick box process. Yeah, we've got women here, 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 and here. We've met our percent criteria. Here you go. But unfortunately, and sadly, some of those women may not be skilled for the positions because they're new to the industry. They don't, things like that. And then that then creates that environment where it's, well, we knew they couldn't do it. And that's not the aim of it. The aim of it is to make sure there is greater equity, but that it's the right people getting into the right jobs, and women are being given the opportunities and being promoted and things like that as well. So I think it needs to have potentially a different approach. What that looks like yet, I haven't considered. But I think setting the targets, whilst it's great, I sense it's actually setting women up for failure, to be honest, because it's making it a tick box process then.
I guess what I always thought with that was, if the targets are there, then it's a matter of getting, women a foot in the door, and it will sort of just figure it out on the way. Like you said, confidence and competency just build so much of a trajectory. But I didn't even consider, the element that you're talking about, setting them up for failure because we're genuinely not trained maybe to be in that position. So is it like a side-by-side thing that should be happening, or should we be focusing more on training?
Well, I think if there is more focus on training and working out, again, like what I touched on before, this, the skills gap analysis of what is needed, and to be able to train them to then be able to get into where it needs to be, rather than setting the targets. And everyone's scrambling, resources are a huge issue at the moment, trying to find resources, let alone trying to find women for construction, because the industry needs a serious overhaul to start with. But, setting those targets, it is great. And, I'm not opposed to it, but I think there needs to be a process put in place first so it is effective and it's not going to, add to the psychosocial hazards as well. So do those skill gap analysis as to what's needed, where women are at, what do they need to be able to elevate, and support them and educate them and lift them up so they can actually succeed. So everyone can be successful. That's the aim. So
I guess if this is the trajectory, like we're sort of, sorry, Laura, you go. Yeah.
No,
okay.
I just had something to add. No, I think this is a concern that everyone has been sort of like thinking about it, like considering, because I've heard this before. And I think a lot of males actually that are in like board positions are thinking this, and they're like, I want to help, but these are the challenges, like not just that we don't have this stuff, but we might be putting certain individuals in a position where they don't know how to deliver a project, for example. And what that does, I guess it could emphasize the not just the confidence gap, but also like the competency gap, or like that we have to continue to prove ourselves. So I was just going to add on that, but continue, Sohan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, okay. 2 little brain thoughts. The first is, if we are going down that road, and it looks like we are because people are setting targets, what advice would you give, young women who are getting into that space, who now are being chucked in the deep end? They're probably not trained up. What would you advise them?
for young women coming in, I would honestly recommend, it goes back to my original part, making sure that you're open and receptive to the learning, because with that you're going to gain more knowledge, which is going to help elevate you through the ranks. And I can only speak from, what I've gained over my time in the industry as well. That's how you're going to elevate. Obviously, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. But it's absolutely essential. And also look at, put forward your expressions to say, well, this is what I'm aiming for. Just because you may have come in at, like a lower position, for example, that's not where you have to stay. Actually have a look at what there is. Really engaged with trying to find, great mentors and stuff who are going to help lift them up, because I wouldn't be where I am without the mentors that I've had. And, it doesn't mean just one, like you can get so many mentors and learn from so many people, for women coming in. And it could just be, like someone they don't need to be a senior person, but it might be someone who's got a couple more years experience that you can learn something. So there's a saying that you always want to be hanging around the people who are 5 steps ahead of you, because that's how you're going to learn, that's how you're going to grow. So it might be someone that's, might be a year ahead of you, but if they're a year ahead of you, they've got another year's experience that you can learn from. So always make sure you hang around people who are those few steps ahead of you so you can learn and keep growing, because that's important.
Just to add on that point, I was thinking maybe friends that challenge you and encourage you to see like those blind sides or blind spots that you have. I think it's also really important. That's why we love having all these like-minded people in our podcast. Hopefully.
And just on that point too, Laura, is, like make sure you're hanging around the right people. That is so important.
Literally
life
changes.
A saying that I learned many years ago, and it's been like a bit of a silent mantra, but you can't fly like an eagle if you're hanging around turkeys. So it's always making sure that you're hanging around people who are actually going to be continually lifting you up rather than keeping you down and keeping you small.
That's true.
I just had one second part. Sorry. To the other bit is, I get that we're putting, women in positions where they might not have, current capability, but like, how is that different, in your opinion, to maybe like you look at a lot of men that end, like young men, graduates that enter like consulting and all these industries where I would say they don't have the skills to be, put in project management roles. Like I was recently talking to someone who's a graduate, literally, who's in a project management role, and they're put in it. No one questions their capability if they've, fuck up. But it's just, okay, it's part of the job. It's learning. How is that different to putting women in that space and allowing them to learn and grow through?
Well, this is the mindset that needs to significantly shift, because there's this whole thing now that if a woman is put into a position, it's a token position because of the focus, and it's not actually based on skill. So sadly, this is actually part of the culture that needs to change, because men, and look, I've seen it and I'm still seeing it, men are just being, and it comes back to this whole resource shortage, men are just literally being put into positions because A, there's not enough people, and B, because men are just naturally more confident than women. There's a whole thing that if there's a job application and there's 10 things, a man will apply if they've only got 6. A woman won't apply if they don't have 1.
Yeah.
And so it's just that whole change between males and females as well. But
is it just that we're being held to a different standard, even by the men? Like, I know we hold ourselves to a different standard, but like the males are also putting us under a microscope.
Well, and it's a whole thing. It's not just being a token, female or to tick a box and meet a criteria, but it's this, it is this thing that you just got to continually keep proving yourself. And that's something like I've never actually realised still working in the industry, and how much I've had to keep doing that. So look, where we're at as of today, it's, obviously it's on the cusp of change. I think we're starting to ride the wave of what's coming. For me, I think it's, it's not all doom and gloom, because there's a lot of focus at the moment. Everyone knows that the culture needs to change. There's a lot of initiatives being put in place. There's a lot of people looking at different things with it, just to name the ACA, the Australian Constructors Association, have got a pledge with all of their members that within the next few years, to actually change the culture. So they're looking at that. They're all the big tier one contractors across Australia, and they've got, hundreds of thousands of people who are in their workforce. So when the tier ones are on board, that will start filtering through the industry as well. And to me, awareness is 80% of the problem. If you can't fix a problem if you're not aware. Now that there's the awareness, it's now the process of fixing it. But this is the job of fixing it. So where we're at today, it's obviously the start of the change. It'll be interesting to see where it's going to be in the next 5 years, because 5 years is the peak of when they need, the projection is 460,000 more people in the industry. So I think the next 5 years is going to be quite interesting to see how rapidly the industry changes. And just, from my time, even this last 12 months, seeing how rapidly it's changed as well with the initiatives, the incentives, the criteria that has to be, met and stuff now. So it's happening at quite a pace at the moment.
It's interesting. I want to see what it looks like in 5 years. I'm like,
at least that's good. I think it's going to be exciting. I'm excited to be a part of it and to help hopefully positively affect it too. So yeah.
That is so true. Yeah. Well, on that note, what lies ahead for Angela personally and professionally?
Personally, I'm going on a holiday in November, which I'm very much looking forward to. So,
where are you going?
Focus. I'm actually heading to Vietnam for 3.5
beautiful.
weeks. So, yeah, I have a milestone birthday to celebrate this year, so I'm having a little break to be able to do that. I will be working at the same time, but not all the time. But so that's my personal thing at the moment. Professionally is basically, my plans are with Epic, get Australia on track first, but my plans are to actually take my company global. So that's the plans with what I'm doing. That's the long-term plan.
That is
the
amazing.
Initiatives that I'm setting up. So, yeah.
Wow.
Happy birthday in advance, first of all. I hope the holiday is great.
Yeah, it will be.
Looking forward to see what Epic, when Epic gets on that scale.
Yeah.
And all the best.
Yeah, thank you so much also for letting us be part of your journey and coming here to continue to spread, that awareness and want to transform the industry that we're part of. And especially because
thank you
that's
for being part of our journey.
Saturday morning. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And
we do so much.
It's always
thank you
lovely to talk to like-minded people. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Honestly.
Yeah.